Hello, everybody. Um, I hope this sound and video quality is okay. I'm using a different device tonight because technical difficulties. So that said, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here in the room. It's January. It's a new year, and I really like to reinforce the truth that it doesn't matter what day it is, it doesn't matter what the date of the day is, there's always 365 years ahead of us. So you could have any day be a new year if that's what you need to reframe a state of mind or a state of heart or a perspective on any situation. So starting fresh with that in mind, let's get comfortable and take some breaths. Just feel into your body. Feel the ground beneath you where there is stability to be found, where gravity meets and holds you safely, steadily, and ideally with ease. And so noticing the place where you are being held, stabilized, and supported. Tune into your breath and let the breath meet that place. So you notice the next inhale, and you might feel it coming in through your nose and down through the throat into the lungs, and the breath itself being carried energetically and molecularly through your bloodstream everywhere it can possibly reach. And you might visualize then that energy carrying through into that meeting place of the ground holding you. And so with this physical awareness and symbolic imagery, you can really root yourself into your place, into this moment. And that's more than half of what's required. That's almost all of what's required, is to arrive. Again and again and again. And however many times is necessary to arrive, we do this. The breath makes its way in and through, and then it repeats. And you might notice ambient sound, whatever is present for you in your surroundings. Note that and make room for it. There's no need to shut anything out. Bring the breath in and bring the breath out. Somewhere along the way, in any given cycle of breath arriving and breath departing, there will be distraction. There will be thoughts of other things, whether present or past or anticipatory of the future. That's the way the mind works. We're grateful for it. At times, that's what keeps us alive. And at other times, it's what keeps us out of presence. And so we can remember that however far back or forward or around we went, we keep landing, we keep arriving, keep making that connection to the ground that supports and holds us. We keep breathing. If you notice yourself getting um, anxious or distractible or bored, make a deeper inquiry, take a longer breath, get interested, notice sensation. Where do you feel the breath making first contact? And then where do you feel it go from there? With this examination, we're not looking to change anything about the experience. We're simply looking to be here for it. Just a few more breaths here. And one more. And then gently awake to this moment, to your immediate surroundings. If you want to shift your position or wiggle or stretch in any way, it's a good time to do that. So, there's a famous, pretty famous, I don't know, Zen Buddhist saying. Maybe you've heard this before. I'm going to tell you the first half of it, and then I'm going to give you a minute to guess how the second half of it goes. The first half of it is, before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, guess what you do? You don't sit up on some throne and say, I have figured out the universe, I'm done, I'm good. No, the saying goes, after enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. And then you keep chopping the wood and you keep carrying the water and you keep showing up for work and you keep having bad dreams and you keep dealing with your health and you keep dealing with relationships and you keep processing your childhood and you keep and you keep and you keep and you keep. It reminds me of there's a collection of short vignettes by Sandra Cisneros called something, and one of them is called one of the vignettes is called Four Skinny Trees, and she says, she talks about the roots and describes the roots of these trees in the city. Oh, the book is called House on Mango Street. Phew. She talks about the roots of the trees outside her apartment window in the city, and she says they keep and they keep and they keep. And against all odds, sometimes we keep chopping water and sometimes we feel like chopping water. We keep chopping wood, we keep carrying water. And regardless of our status of enlightenment. And um, the Buddha himself found enlightenment. He awoke to the state of nirvana when he was 35 years old. And, he could have had it made, could have retired then and there, but he kept on. He kept and kept and kept meditating and teaching and wandering and taking alms and giving blessings and asking for guidance for 45 more years. He lived until he was 80, and he didn't stop teaching or meditating or experiencing this enlightened state. That's a lot of water and wood. The ecstatic state does not exist in an exalted state. It exists in every single ordinary, mundane aspect of daily existence. We don't do this to get away from anything. We do this to abide the things that we are next to or underneath or on top of or carrying, like the wood, like the water. In order to find the ecstasy in the ordinary, the enlightened state of what it's like to carry water and chop wood, part of this work is to get really, really laser focused and interested in the smallest little things about what seems really negligible and unimportant. The way you could be doing the dishes and you're staring at the kitchen sink and you're watching the remnants of food slide off the plate in a stream of water, and all of a sudden the water is doing something different, and it catches the light somehow, and you've got a little microcosm of a waterfall right there in your dirty dishes. The way a fire or a candle flame is so consistent in its inconsistency. It will never look the same twice, just like another Buddhist saying, you never step in the same river twice. And to watch a flame burn itself into these moments of special enlightened awareness can be really mesmerizing if we would put the phone down and really take the time to pay attention. And I am as guilty as anybody for not putting the phone down enough. But there it is. When we do, the payoff is huge. Traffic, sitting in traffic, we live in the DC area here, and it can be really brutal, even if you're just driving a few miles. But to watch the way the cars catch the light from the traffic signals and from each other, and especially at night, that too can be mesmerizing. The way you can look at the faces of other drivers and passengers and send them loving kindness and wonder about what they're struggling with and what they might be dealing with. And that old thing about if somebody cuts you off, send them a rainbow, not a middle finger. Also me, very guilty as the next person for choosing to send the latter rather than the former when I'm not paying enough attention, when my mind is caught in past or future anticipatory or regret trains. The way the fabric responds to your touch as you fold laundry. That can be a really, really soothing experience if we give it time and don't see it as a chore like chopping wood and carrying water, but to see it as a beautiful expression of just being alive and normal and simply present. So these practices are not meant to be an escape. They're meant to teach us how to be present in meaningful and kind and compassionate ways. So we'll do another stretch of sitting. I just realized why I was having technical difficulties. I'm streaming this on my personal account and not the studio's account. So, oh well.
You'll go to jail.
Well, no, I think
Unclassified.
I'm sure on my personal account I have 0 followers as opposed to the few thousand we have at Sun and Moon. Go to Sun and Moon Yoga Studio when we're done here. Oh, anyway, so clearly I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't really chopping that wood as attentively as I might when I set this up. All right, so again, finding a comfortable seat. And just pick the first boring little thing that comes to mind about something you did today. And bring yourself into a moment where you might have paid more attention. And capture that memory. And then bring it right here, right now. Carry it into this moment where you notice your breath. And you have this new opportunity to be as attentive, as ecstatic, as enlightened as the Buddha was when he sat under that tree. I'll tell just a really quick story before we settle into a silent stretch. But on the night of his enlightenment, he recalled a time as a much younger man slash as a child, actually, when he was brought to a park sitting under an apple tree, and his caretaker left him when she wasn't supposed to, and he had this ecstatic experience of sitting under the tree and all of a sudden noticing the blossoms and the gentle breeze and the laughter of children in the distance. And it was that memory that brought him into his moment of enlightenment to say, I can recapture that. I can be as present now as I was then. And so here we are under our present day Bodhi trees in our structures that we've built to give us shelter. We can be ecstatically present for everything that's here right now, even what's painful and unwanted and frustrating. Just follow the breath. The breath comes in, the breath goes out. No more exciting or special than the kitchen sink water faucet comes on and then we turn it off. Nothing more ecstatic than chopping the wood, carrying the water, brushing the teeth, going to work. This sense of presence sometimes can feel heavy. Sometimes it feels light. Sometimes it feels like there isn't much to pay attention to or much that's worth noting. In any of those circumstances, it's useful to let go of some idea of how it should be. So if it's heavy, then we make a note, heavy. If it's boring, we make a note, boring. If it's confusing, we make that note too. And in that moment of noting, then we've come back. We've done the thing. We're present. Sometimes there's a sensation that we want to tend to, and it's worth considering, is it really important to do that, to you know, shift that limb or change that position or scratch that itch. It's an interesting investigation. Do we impulsively respond to every urge, or do we find an opportunity to wait it out and luxuriate a little longer in stillness? There are no rules in this realm. Just investigations. So take another few breaths and then invite some deliberate movement as you bring yourself back into this present moment and all of your immediate surroundings. Scratch all the itches. Do all the stretches. So, with this sort of careful attention that I'm suggesting about ways to be in ordinary moments in relatively extraordinary ways. What can happen is that we begin to see through the illusion of clumps of separate entities. I'm going to say more about that, but it's like we get this microscopic vision. So, for example, you look at a flower, and we don't, in sort of in a distractible state, it's just a flower, and it's this thing, and there it is, and then there's all the worries and concerns and distractions that we use to not be present. But with this sort of presence that I'm suggesting, this penetrative attention, it starts to break down as not this clump of flower, but it's a stem, and it's a bud, and it's a blossom, and it's a petal, and a stamen, and a pistil. And I Googled other words about parts of the flower, and I couldn't pronounce half of them. There's a root. I knew that one. There's the soil that it grew in. There's the bee that pollinated it. There's the, if you bought the flower at the store, there's at some point somebody snipped it. So it's the scissors that cut the stem, and it's the florist that arranged it, and it's the cashier that took your payment when you hopefully paid for it before you left the store, and it's the faucet that gave the water to put in the vase, and it's the artist that crafted the vase itself. Nothing exists unto itself in this entire universe. We know this is a fact. This is a proven scientific fact. So if we look at anything closely enough, we start to see its component parts. And when the component parts reveal themselves, then we learn this trick, this practice of being able to look at ourselves as nothing more than component parts. This was a key foundational teaching that the Buddha gave, which was the idea of no such thing as an independent self. We are only just as much as who we are because we are interdependent with everything around us, other people and the parts of our bodies. So this is great news, because when you look in the mirror, and if what you see is something that you have objections to, and we all do, then you can use this tool, this skill, to see through those objections and to see that I'm not this clump of Annie that is different than this clump of Jonathan and this clump of Frank. And sorry to call you a clump. Thank you. but we are hair, and we are skin and bones and muscle and organ and blood and molecule, and we are stardust, and we are golden, and we're not just this one permanent structure entity. We are these aggregates. The Buddha called them skandhas, or piles. The word is piles of things that are constantly in flux, and only exist because of the thing that came before. And whatever we are now is going to cause the thing that will come after to arise. And there can be terror in this understanding, but there can be profound freedom. So if we have either an underinflated ego or an overinflated one, either side of the equation is bound to bring suffering. But we can pierce that overinflation, and we can fluff up the underinflation with this understanding that we're just this aggregate of interdependent natural existences. In a meditation practice, this is why the breath is such a powerful tool, aside from or in addition to the fact that it's always coming and going, just like we really are always coming and going. But it's a way that we can attune to this cyclical nature of beingness. And we can get really well practiced at those comings and goings so that we don't end up clinging to what came before or pushing away what might come next. We're just here. We're just here in the flux. We're just floating down that river. If we're lucky, then when we are the water that needs to be carried, somebody will be there to do that. And if we're lucky, we will have the presence of mind to be the one that carries another in times of pain and difficulty. And sometimes we just have to carry ourselves. But it won't be for long, because that river is running. All right. So a final stretch of sitting, some awareness to your physical, to your posture, whether reclined or seated or somewhere in between. And aligning with an understanding of gravity, holding us steady, connecting to this earth in this moment with these breaths. You can celebrate those moments where you catch yourself having wandered off and you came back. That's the work. That's the magic. That's the ecstatic state. It's just to remember that you're here right now. The next breath is the only moment that matters. Keep coming back. Occasionally, you might choose to sharpen your attention when it feels increasingly difficult to stay present. You can make an intention for three more breaths of really full and clear tending to the moment at hand. And get interested in how many times during those 3 intentional breaths, the mind skips away for seconds. And then it comes back and causes another occasion to celebrate this ecstatic, attentive moment. Just a few more breaths. Celebrate these last moments of intentional quiet. can note the sensation, the quality of beingness that you experience or that you observe. And if there's anything appealing about it, understand that this way of being is entirely and always available, entirely and always present. We just need to notice. And so just bringing a little bit of intentional closing energy to these moments. If you're seated, you might bring your palms together in front of your heart. If you're reclined, you can remain reclined, or you might sit up, and we can bow head toward heart and just send some waves of compassion and care and loving kindness to anyone that you know who is suffering acutely. Send some care and loving kindness and compassion to the people in California at this moment who are suffering with these angry storms, and to the suffering earth herself in these times of challenge and change. All across the planet, we are facing hard realities. We can be present for that, compassionate, clear-eyed, and do what we can. And then turn that compassion back in kindness to your own heart and whatever burdens it is carrying. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks you all for being here. Be well.